Welcome and hello. It's good to be together today here on Sunday, November 15th, 2020 for our Tiny Desk Worship. This is First Church and Parish in Dedham, and I'm the minister, Reverend Rali Weaver. We begin with our centering thought. Fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. That was the words of the Honorable Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I invite you now to join with me in the prelude improvisation on congas played by Matt Meyer. had originally thought we would be together on the green this week, so I hope no one got that word. I hope everyone sees the message I send out Saturday night and knows that we're not meeting on the green due to the rain and the cold and my inability to get this done in time. I do hope you'll keep watching your All Church email and your emails every week for our opportunities to be together face to face, although there'll be fewer as the weather gets colder. We sure do miss you and wish we could be a community every day together. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me or to Grace. We're always here and we're thinking of you. And every day at 9 o'clock to 9:30, I'm available on Zoom for a Zoom check-in and then meditation. And also once a month, we do the White Supremacy book group. And we have once a month, the Nature and Nurture Society walk. So please watch your email for all of those, or check us out on your website, or call the church office if you want more details, or call me. We will now begin our morning worship with A Morning Sunbeam by Florence B. Price, played by Derry Dolezal. Our opening words this morning are Making Peace by Denise Levertov. A voice from the dark called out, "The poets must give us imagination of peace, to oust the intense familiar imagination of disaster. Peace, not only the absence of war, but peace like a poem, is not there ahead of itself. Can't be imagined before it is made, can't be known except in the words of its making, grammar of justice, syntax of mutual aid, a feeling towards it, dimly sensing a rhythm is all we have until we begin to utter metaphors, learning them as we speak. A line of peace might appear if we restructured the sentence our lives are making. Revoked its affirmation of profit and power, questioned our needs, allowed long pauses. A cadence of peace might balance its weight on the different fulcrum, peace, a presence, an energy field more intense than war, might pulse then, stanza by stanza, into the world, each act of living one of its words, each word a vibration of light, facets of the forming crystal. I invite you now to join with me in singing hymn number 287, Faith of the Larger Liberty. I light our chalice this morning for all of those who are fighting for justice, who are working for peace, who are striving for a better world. And I light our green sanctuary candle for all the ways we strive to be a more sustainable congregation. I invite you to say with me the unison affirmation, as is printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to serve humanity in love is our covenant with each other and with God. I've asked Lucy to read our story again this week, but I want to remind you that I would accept any story recorded by any child on any subject. I would love it. If you want an idea, I can tell you what the next week's message is, but I mostly want the kids reading stories, and I would really love to include your child. We miss seeing everybody. Our story today is I Dissent by Ruth Bader Ginsburg Makes Her Mark by Debbie Levy and illustrated by Elizabeth Badley. I'll ring this bell to begin.
Hi, I'm Lucy CP, and I'll be reading I Dissent, Ruth Bader Ginsburg Makes Her Mark, written by Debbie Levy and illustrated by Elizabeth Badley. You could say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life has been one disagreement after another. This is how Ruth Bader Ginsburg changed her life and ours. In 1940, Little Ruth's neighbor was vibrant with the immigrants. People from Italy, Ireland, England, Poland, and Germany. Jews from Russia, like Ruth's father, Nathan Bader. People from different cultures with different holidays, foods, and traditions. But in all these families in Brooklyn, New York, and in families everywhere, one thing was the same. Boys were expected to grow up, go out in the world, and do big things. Girls were expected to find husbands. Celia Amster Bader thought girls should also have the chance to make their mark on the world, so she took Ruth to the library. On the shelves were stories of girls and women who did big things. Ruth read about Nancy Drew, girl detective. She discovered Amelia Earhart, daring aviator. She learned of Athena, goddess of Greek myths. Here were independent girls and women taking charge. Ruth read her way into this world. Around her, the sweet scent of books blended with savory aromas from the Chinese restaurant downstairs. Delicious. A girl could be anything. Sometimes Ruth and her parents took car trips out of the crowded city. As they drove past a hotel in Pennsylvania, Ruth saw a sign. This is how it was those days. Hotels, restaurants, even entire neighborhoods announcing, no Jews, no Mexicans, whites only, no colored, white only, no dogs or Jews allowed. Ruth and her family were Jewish. This was prejudice, pure and simple. Now it was Ruth's turn to disagree. She disagreed by never forgetting how it felt to read such words. She never forgot the sting of prejudice. In elementary school, Ruth was excellent in some classes and less excellent in others. Her favorites were English, history, and gym. In those she did well. But then there was handwriting. Ruth was left-handed. Back then, teachers told left-handers they should try to write with their right hands. Ruth's right-handed penmanship was so bad she earned a D on her penmanship test. She cried. Ruth protested by writing with her left hand from the day forward, and it turned out she had quite nice handwriting. Ruth also had a little problem with sewing and cooking. These were her least favorite classes, but girls had to take them. Boys took shop, where they worked with saws and other tools. She wanted to take shop. She wanted to handle a saw. She didn't get what she wanted. It may have been unfair to girls and to boys, but Ruth was learning that sometimes life was like that. Ruth loved music. She especially loved opera. In music class, she lifted her voice in song. This time, it was Ruth's music teacher who objected, gently. Ruth simply could not carry a tune. The teacher asked Ruth not to sing out loud in the chorus. Ruth kept on singing. In the shower and in her dreams, she continued to adore opera too. By the time Ruth was in high school, friends and teachers knew her as an outstanding student, baton twirler, cello player, and newspaper editor. As graduation approached, Ruth was chosen to make a speech at the ceremony, but she had been keeping a big secret. Her mother was terribly sick. The day before graduation, Celia Bader died. There was no agreeing with this. There was no disagreeing. This simply was. Ruth did not go to her graduation. She did not give her speech. Still, Ruth knew what her mother wanted. 3 months later, she left home to attend college. Not many girls went to college in the 1950s. Ruth made friends, but she also met girls who excluded Jews from their clubs. She met boys who thought girls should be looking for husbands. And then she met Martin Ginsburg. Marty was tall and funny. Ruth was small and serious. Marty could make her laugh. They fell in love and hatched a plan. After college, they would go to law school, both of them. Lawyers, Ruth had learned, could fight unfairness and prejudice in courts. People thought it was a fine idea for Marty to attend law school. They didn't think Ruth should go. A lady lawyer? People disapproved. Ruth disapproved right back. So did Marty. They got married. They went to law school, and they had a baby, Jane. Ruth's law school class had a total of 9 women and 500 men. She studied mightily and tied for first place in the class. And yet at graduation time, no one would hire this brilliant new lawyer. Why not? She was a woman. Men didn't want to work with a woman. She was a mother. Men thought a mother shouldn't pay attention to work. She was Jewish. Many people were still prejudiced. 3 strikes against her, but Ruth was not out. She resisted and persisted. Finally, a judge hired her, and she worked like mad for him. After that, one law school hired her, and then another. Ruth became one of the few female law professors in the whole country, and she did it with a new baby at home, James. Ruth had disagreed and worked her way into being a lawyer and professor, but around her, other women were excluded from jobs. When they did get jobs, they earned less than men. They were kept out of important roles in courts and government. To make matters worse, the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the land, approved of all of this. As one Supreme Court justice had written years before, the natural and proper timidity and delicacy which belongs to the female sex evidently unfits it for many of the occupations of civil life. In other words, women and girls were too shy and weak to do big things in the world. Another Supreme Court opinion declared, women has always been dependent upon man. Ruth really disagreed with this. So Ruth went to court to fight for equal treatment of women. The most important cases went to the Supreme Court. The first time she appeared there, Ruth was so nervous she feared she might be sick. But standing before the 9 Supreme Court justices, Ruth imagined them as her students. She, Professor Ginsburg, needed to teach these students, who were all men, why a person's choices shouldn't be limited just because she was born a girl. Ruth wasn't only fighting for women. When women were excluded from the work world, men were excluded from home life. Why shouldn't a father stay home to take care of his children and cook the meals? Why shouldn't his wife run a business? These were fresh ideas in the 1970s. Ruth did not win every case, but she won enough. With each victory, women and men and girls and boys enjoyed a little more equality. Sometimes Ruth and Marty's children received confused looks when they said that their mother argued cases in the Supreme Court and their father made the family's dinners. People found this strange. Ruth, Marty, James did not concur. They kept on being the type of family they wanted to be, and dinners at the Ginsburg home were delicious. Marty was a successful lawyer, but also a marvelous chef who had mastered the art of French cooking. Ruth, her family knew, had mastered the art of burnt pot roast. Ruth became well known as a lawyer, so well known that President Jimmy Carter chose her to be a judge in Washington, D.C. Then Ruth became known as a first-rate judge, and President Bill Clinton asked her to be a justice on the Supreme Court. Along with the 8 other Supreme Court justices, her job would be to decide the most significant cases and answer the most difficult legal questions in the United States. Ruth agreed. In 1993, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg became the first Jewish woman on the nation's highest court. In each case the Supreme Court considers, after hearing from lawyers who argue for each side, the 9 justices take a vote. The side that gets the most votes wins the case. The justices who agree write an opinion to explain the court's ruling. When Justice Ginsburg votes with the winning side, she wears a special lace collar over her robe, but many times when the Supreme Court announces the decision, Justice Ginsburg disagrees. I dissent, she says, and she writes her own opinion explaining why. Plus, she wears a different collar just for dissenting. I dissent, Justice Ginsburg said when the court wouldn't help women or African Americans or immigrants who had been treated unfairly at work. I dissent when the court rejected a law meant to protect the right of all citizens to vote no matter their skin color. I dissent when the court said no to schools that offered African Americans a better chance to go to college. Justice Ginsburg can be very convincing. In one dissent, she explained why the court was wrong to rule against women workers who were fighting to get paid the same as men. Congress and the president agreed with her and passed a law to undo the court's ruling. Justice Ginsburg has disagreed most often with the legal views of Justice Antonin Scalia, but they didn't just complain. I dissent. No, I dissent. They shared their conflicting ideas. Each pointed out weaknesses in the other's arguments, and after their opinions were written, the 2 justices had fun with each other. They didn't let disagreements about law get in the way of a long friendship. They went parasailing in France, riding an elephant in India. Justice Ginsburg is now the oldest member of the Supreme Court. Some people have said she should quit because of her age. Justice Ginsburg begs to differ. She works as hard as ever. She exercises in the gym. She never misses a day in court. She attends the opera, gives speeches, and travels. Many have cheered Justice Ginsburg for her persistence and independence. They've called her a rock star, a queen, a goddess, a hero. Of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg isn't a rock star, a queen, or a goddess, but to many, she is a hero. She made change happen, and she changed minds. She cleared a path for people to follow in her footsteps, girls in college, women in law school, and everyone who wants to be treated without prejudice. Her voice may not carry a tune, but it sings out for equality. Step by step, she has made a difference, one disagreement after another.
I invite you now into a time of prayer or meditation, as is your practice. We begin by breathing in peace and breathing out love. Let us be grateful for all the silences in our lives, for with them we may more completely experience the sound. Amen.
Our first reading is an excerpt from an African American and Latinx history of the United States by Paul Ortiz. When William Lloyd Garrison proposed to close down the American Anti-Slavery Society, the Christian Recorder dissented. Quote, "Although we love Mr. Garrison as much as ever and feel that he will work as faithfully in our cause as ever, we by no means endorse his opinion that the Anti-Slavery Society should be disbanded. The Anti-Slavery Society should be kept in existence as long as slaves breathe the air anywhere in the world." End quote. The Christian Recorder associated triumphalism in the United States with the betrayal of oppressed people in Latin America. Quote, "Disband the Anti-Slavery Society when Cuba, with over 500,000 slaves, lies at our gates? Disband the Anti-Slavery Society when Maximilian's government may be permanent and may be slaveholding? It may be said these are out of the United States, but these men, slaves, are our brothers." End quote. Frederick Douglass amplified this theme in a speech to the American Anti-Slavery Society in 1869. Douglass argued that slavery was not yet defeated in the United States, and that we are here tonight in the interest of the Negro, but we are here also in the interest of patriotism. Patriotism in the interest of liberty in America, liberty in Cuba, liberty the world over. African Americans viewed abolition in the United States as a springboard to challenge subjugation everywhere.
Now please enjoy the anthem Adoration by Florence Price, played by Susan Jensen. Thank you very much, Susan, for playing for us again today.
Our second reading is an excerpt from Dissent, The History of an American Idea by Ralph Young. I have written elsewhere that dissent is the fuel for the engine of progress. But progress, like dissent itself, is a disputed concept. For some, progress is creating a more just society in which all Americans enjoy the rights set forth in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. For some, the progress that dissenters seek is an unmitigated disaster, a drastic deviation from the ideals of the founders that will bring the country to ruin. Throughout the country's tumultuous history, the long tradition of skepticism and questioning authority has moved the United States somewhat erratically in fits and starts, generally in the direction of all men are created equal. Whether it is progress or not, whether it is evolution or devolution, is in the eye of the beholder. And in the eyes of this beholder, dissenters need to push people to a broader consciousness, to open their minds to see beyond their own narrow self-interests, to realize that what is good for everyone is good for them and ultimately coincides with their own self-interest. And we need to understand, too, that in the end, the arc of dissent, to paraphrase Martin Luther King Jr. in a different context, bends toward justice. At a time when more and more Americans claim they get a more accurate and more nuanced perspective of the events happening in the world from Comedy Central shows hosted by Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, and Trevor Noah, than they do from real network evening news or political punditry, it is clear that it is our duty, if we value American democracy, to be informed citizens. And we need to demand more responsible journalism. We need to demand politicians who are beholden to the people and not to those who bankroll them. We need to question authority. We need to speak out. We need to make sure that we, the people, really mean something. We need to dissent.
I invite you to join with us in the hymn number 135, How Happy Are They Born or Taught, written in your order of service. It is rare that a Unitarian Universalist does not know the power of dissent. But in the light of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's long career on the Supreme Court and death, and in light of this last election, I thought it might behoove us to consider the importance of dissent in our democracy. Now, dissent is generally considered a minority opinion. In his book, Civil Disobedience, Thoreau points out that just because an ideal such as abolition is considered for a time a minority decision, it isn't as if it weren't the morally right thing to do. So often, the morally right thing is at odds with the popular or legal thing. It's important to teach young children to stand up for what is right. Otherwise, they will easily be swayed by their peers' fluctuating opinions. As adults, we can, too, only take in so much information at a time. It's easy to be caught in an opinion influenced by commentators we listen to, or to just stay in a bubble of like-minded people. Just consider the symbiotic relationship between Fox News and our current president, or as my Republican father would point out, NPR and the liberal bastion. When we only listen to the things we agree with, we are never confronted with differences of opinion. What is difficult is that when you do watch what passes for television news these days, much of it is peppered with opinions, not facts, and is meant to be entertainment instead of true journalism. Dissent can only manifest when we are confronted with differences of opinion or put ourselves on the line to confront what is true and what is essential. After this election, I have been more and more aware of the vast differences of opinions between political parties and persons. Party stances are just that, political stances. But when we are considering the plight of people with black and brown skin, the treatment of children, the well-being of families, the plight of the poor, these things should be moral considerations, not financial or political ones. In fact, if all politicians had a moral compass, and I don't mean a religious one, wouldn't we all agree about the civil rights for every person? I think we might get closer to that in our present day if we did away with money in politics and held anything considered to be journalism to a higher standard. We are all humanly capable of seeing beyond our limited self-interests. However, this requires that our basic needs are met, that we have some standardized education, and that we encourage everyone to engage in the conscious exploration. Sometimes we all fall into the trap of thinking we have the righteous answer, and we forget that others have perspectives and life experiences that form their own. When we remember to respect every person's inherent worth and dignity, we know that even things we disagree with are equally important to pay attention to. It is difficult for me to believe that when someone is disparaging or hurting people just because of the color of their skin, or over-sexualizing someone just because of their sex, and still I know in my heart we are all taught or experienced into our perspectives, and if we are going to find a middle ground, we need to find a way to dissent and discuss with respect for all perspectives. Too often people want to avoid conflict, so they let differences of opinion pass that would do a world of good to explore. I want to suggest some attitudes we might want to explore if we want to enter into dissenting opinions without blowing things up and tearing things down. For starters, we need to enter into any dissenting opinion with a curiosity for another perspective. In fact, the word curious is a good place to start. I'm curious about what you meant. I'm curious about how you're feeling. It takes a great deal of courage to be the dissenting voice, but we know from Ruth Bader Ginsburg's example that dissent can push the opinions of others closer to the middle ground. By taking seriously the prevailing opinion and approaching it with curiosity, you can often find a better way to respond to it, find a solution that will serve the common good of all people. This common good understanding is what this country was founded upon. It is what will be required for us to make sure that all Black lives matter, make sure that America can be great again, and to build back better. Not one of us holds the only key to a perfect formula to end hunger and to end violence against Black and brown bodies and to stop gun violence, or make up for 400 years of mistreatment of Black and brown bodies, or centuries of mistreatment of women. All we can do is take a step forward, and then take another step forward, and then take another step forward, and then check every step we take with dissent, so we can never lose track of the ultimate good of for the common good of all. For all of you who've been disheartened by the stacking of the courts with more and more conservative judges, it might first do some good to be curious about how conservatives might feel if liberals stacked the courts with many generations of progressive judges. In fact, some conservatives feel liberals have done that historically, perhaps just because Ruth Bader Ginsburg had such a long and distinguished career. Let us always remember that whether or not the world is progressing in the ways that fit with our ideas of beauty, truth, and goodness, there will always be more beauty, truth, and goodness to aspire to. Life is always changing, and standing up for what is right and good is also changing. Dissenting when anything deprives goodness from another person is an essential part of the democratic process. Let us never shrink from sharing our perspectives or shy away from a discussion that might change our minds. I invite you now to join with me in singing hymn number 187. It sounds along the ages. And let us fix our steps so we stagger not in the uneven motions of this world, but go steadily on our way neither censuring our journeys by the weather we meet or turning aside from anything that might befall us. Amen. And please join me for Zoom Coffee Hour.